Welcome to the PALLATT, the podcast about language learning and teacher training by International House London. My name is Florence, and in this episode, I am speaking with one of our incredible Korean language teachers, Maria. Maria tells us about her experience of learning Korean, her time spent in South Korea, and teaching Korean today. Okay, so today we are talking with Maria, one of our wonderful Korean teachers, about all things Korean. And I guess what I would really love to do is maybe ask a little bit more about your experience of South Korea yourself. So moving there, living there, learning the language, and maybe even teaching it. Tell us the story.
Okay. First, I was in Korea in 2000, so 23 years ago. It was my first visit. I was a student then. It was a short visit for maybe around a week. And I went to Busan. This is a city at the very south of the peninsula with my Korean friend, which I made already by this time. And I stayed at her place with her parents. And at that time it was too much, of a shock to me because it was too much of exotics. I stayed in Korean original house with original family. I ate Korean food from morning to evening. I had to speak Korean most of the times. That was really, really hard. But that was like, a real experience. So after that, I realized that I really want to do it in my life, and I never regret it. I never regret it. I think it's one of my best decisions in life, if I have any.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, that really was a proper immersive experience. I mean, just kind of first thing that you hear in the morning is Korean. Last thing you hear in the evening was Korean. Did you dream in Korean at all? Did it happen to you at
At
all?
that time, not, but later, yes, of course. Yeah, I had that experience. In Korean traditional house, sometimes people prefer to sleep on the floor, and that's what we did. Uh, and I really liked it. And also they sometimes they have a table on the floor as well. It's like very low tables, so they sit on the floor and they eat on the floor. And it's not something they do for tourists. Some houses they still keep this way of life. So that was the house I visited then, and it was interesting, totally
Hmm.
interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, a little bit, because when you have to do it all the time, it was difficult, but still
Yeah.
very interesting. I had an experience like after several days of living this life. I told my friend, "Can we go to McDonald's, please?" Because I really wanted something that I'm accustomed to. And she was a little
Yeah.
bit even upset. And she said, "My parents are trying so hard to make you feel at home, and they cook for you. I mean, not for you, but they, of course, they were trying to treat me with the best things they had, and I really appreciated that." So, but then we went to McDonald's. I had my hamburger, and then I came back and
Yeah.
I enjoyed Korean food. It's absolutely fantastic.
No one would begrudge you a bit of Western withdrawal, Maria. Absolutely. Like sometimes, I mean, it's comfort and familiarity. Really, I mean, it just took the form. It just took the form of McDonald's. Essentially,
Yeah,
it could have taken the form of anything else. You mentioned that you had already made a Korean friend. So how
yeah.
did that come about?
We met at my country because she came to learn the language as well. So she was interested in me. I was interested in her. And this friendship lasted all these years. Sometimes it was less, sometimes it was more. But just today in the morning, I was talking to this lady. She has already two daughters, and when we met, we didn't have kids. We were students, and we still keep in touch. And we are planning to have a joint presentation at one of the conferences next year. So
Oh my
can you imagine?
goodness.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's impossible, but yes, she's a professor at the university, and we are planning a joint presentation about Korean language and literature in our lives.
I mean, I love that. This kind of this. It's the fact that it's maintained. it's long distance, so it's still a long distance friendship. So that's incredible that it stayed there. I still try to interact and engage with the German exchange, my German exchange partner as well.
Mhm.
And it's just, sporadic messaging here and there and everything, but just kind of like keeping tabs with someone who just lives a completely different life to you in some respects. In some respects, as I said, obviously. So you studied it, and it's the choice of Korean. I think you touched on the fact that it's was just quite natural for you. Is that the way that you would describe it, the choice?
Yes, I had a choice that time. I had a choice between Japanese, Chinese, and Korean because I wanted something from Far East.
Mm.
But there were rumors at that time when I was a student that it's very difficult to find jobs in Japanese. Very difficult, so you will not be able to
Mm.
find anything. And Chinese at that time it was less popular among like teenagers, like young people. So Korean was like last choice, and I didn't know much about Korea to tell you the truth at that time. But because it was the end of the 90s, and Korean products was everywhere. Not K-pop like now, not K-culture. So there was no dramas, there were no movies, there were no pop songs, but there was a lot of automobiles, cars, like appliances, home appliances, telephones already slowly. So Korea looked like a very advanced, technologically advanced and fashionable country. So I was like, that sounds interesting. Why not? And that's how it all started, and then one by one, step by step, and here I am here teaching Korean. Yeah, at International House London, and studying, researching Korean culture, writing about it, reading Korean books. Yeah. Have you heard, for example, last year, Korean novel was in the shortlist for Booker Prize, nominated for Booker Prize. No one could even imagine this 25 years ago, but now we have it. And this year too, as far as I know, another Korean novel is in the long list, and maybe not even one. So
Wow.
you see, it was the right decision.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that is definitely playing the long game, Maria. Absolutely. I mean, I appreciate it wasn't based on like studying economics on the eventual prosperity of Korea, but you saw something in it, obviously. And somewhat of an underdog has become absolute a success story. And yes, you're right. I mean, I do like to dabble in kind of translated literary fiction as well. And I read something called Winter in Sokcho,
Hmm.
which was I don't know if you've heard of the book, but I read that. It was
Mm-hmm. No, not yet, but I will check. Yeah, I think I heard, but I haven't yet read. Yeah.
I mean I believe Sokcho is a real place. I mean my geography isn't amazing of South Korea, but it is well I just loved it. It was just I was just reading more about this area. I mean South Korean culture, but just also translated fiction a bit more as well. I also read, I think, Pachinko. I
Yes,
don't know
it's
if you've heard of
right.
that one. That was
Yes.
quite big as well. I loved that. Yes, absolutely on board on that literary wave. I think it's fantastic. It's coming up as well in the shortlist and long lists. Long lists are equally important, equally tough to get onto.
I wanted just to add that if you like Pachinko, you will definitely love another new one. The name is The Beasts of the Little Lambs by Kim Ji-hye. You
Okay.
know, it's also touches this
Yeah.
time of colonial era in Korea, so the beginning of the 20th century. But
Mm,
it's amazing
okay.
love story. It started very slowly, so I was like reading, like, okay, what's
Mm,
up, and slowly just took me. And at the last pages, I literally didn't want to finish it. I was reading it so slowly, and still the heroes are in my heart, and I live with them now. They are like my relatives. So I
oh,
strongly recommend you this book. It's really a good one. It makes you feel very nice and think about the story, these fates of these people. You will love it, I'm sure. If you love Pachinko, you will love this one too.
oh man, I'm gonna set myself up for like, you know what? I'm going on holiday, so that shall be my holiday read. So it is in my notebook.
Yeah, and let me know later how did you like it, because I really want to know how
Oh,
it
I
is.
will, Maria. Believe you me, I will. Thank you very much for the recommendation. And is this something that you find you often do as well in the Korean classes? Are you ever recommend kind of books like those, or is that kind of where it came from? wanting to spread the love, I suppose.
Yes, yes, you're right. Yes, that's one of my secret weapons I use in the classroom. For example, when mainly I teach elementary level. I mean, at International House London, we mainly teach elementary Korean mostly, and
Hmm.
people come to learn. We start, of course, with the alphabet because
Hmm.
Koreans use their own
Hmm.
alphabet, which is called Hangul. And instead of using just any word or any text to practice reading, I like to use, the movie posters to practice reading first verbs, first phrases,
Mm.
because students love it when they make meaning out of the word, and it suddenly struck them that, oh, I know this, I have seen it, I read it. They really, it's a very good emotion, motivates. So, for example, I used one. Have you seen the Parasites? This Oscar movie.
I have seen Parasite, yes.
Yes. So the Korean title is Pisang Chung. So it's quite a short word, easy to read.
Hmm.
So I'm using this one or some others. Yes, and that's how we start to see that Korean is not just words and sentences, but it's like so many interesting things behind it, and students love to feel it, and that's what motivates them to keep learning because it's not easy. So you should keep them motivated.
You definitely have the benefit of riding the pop cultural wave. So it's fab that you have that kind of media, that popular media as well to use, kind of to subtly ease them into it, I suppose. And you mentioned it's quite difficult, and I'm interested to know what do you think are the areas or the aspects that students find the most difficult?
The thing with the Asian languages in general, not only Korean, is that they have this levels of politeness. So the language you use with your boss is definitely different with the language you use with your kids or with a very close friend. It's true for any language, of course, but in terms of Korean, the grammar will be different. The vocabulary will be different. So you will use different words. For example, I will give you an example. Easy thing like what's your name? What can we learn it at the first or second lesson, right? But there are two completely different sentences for the situation when you ask a person, for example, in the street or in the conference or in the classroom, like a grown up, or if you ask a kid or like a friend in the bar or some nightclub. It will be different words, different grammar. It will be shorter or longer. So that's one of the things that the students at the elementary levels find quite challenging because you have to learn from the very beginning, like kind of two languages in a sense. So the politeness levels. But I will tell you one funny joke which I loved. I read it the other day. Level what students find difficult. Level A, the sounds, the phonetics. Level B, vocabulary and grammar. Level C, prices for apartments, working culture, and and Korean way of living. So I mean, when you really master the language, it's already not the language that bother you, but the way of life in the country. So I think you always have something to complain about. But at the beginner level, yeah, the politeness, the different level of politeness, how to address people. For example, in Korean language, they do have the pronoun you, like when I ask, how are you? Where do you go? But in Korean, there is no you. They do
Okay.
not like pronounce. So instead of saying I am a teacher, I would say Maria is a
Okay.
teacher. And if I talk to my kids, I wouldn't say I will give you a book. I will say mommy will give you a book, something like that. So these little things, it sounds interesting, but when you have to control this in in your head all the time, it's quite challenging.
I can
That's what
imagine
people
going
do.
in. It can be quite challenging. And I suppose I'm kind of throwing myself at the deep end here. But what? So would you say are like the two? you have hello in professional grown up situations, and then maybe hello to, let's say, like you're talking
Mm.
to your friend's child. Which two hellos would you say?
Among friends, very close friends, or addressing kids, you will say 안녕, 안녕. But if you address, for example, today we met for the first time with you, right? So I would never say seriously 안녕, but I would say 안녕하세요, or maybe even 안녕하십니까. So these are at least three different words. They are related to each other, but they have different endings. They all mean hello. But if I address you with 안녕, that means a little, a little. We have to keep this distance, and we slowly
Ah,
make it shorter with our relations.
I love that. So it correlates to the closeness that you have with the person.
Yes,
Fab.
absolutely.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why Koreans like to, not like, but they usually try to find out your age. It's not because they want to know how exactly you are old, but it's because they need to place you at a certain, level, and know how to address you, which words to use uh, when talking to you. So this is, yeah, interesting system to learn.
When do they throw it in? When do they like? Do they say hello and they go? You say hello back, and then can I just ask really quickly, how old are you? How did they just slip it in like this?
No, no. Of course, at the beginning, they will use the highest level of politeness to
Yes, that's the
respect you
default
as
setting.
a
Yeah.
new person. Yes, it's default setting, exactly. But it's not the question about age will not be number two question. Of course not. And of course, Koreans know that in European and Western culture, it's not that appropriate to ask about your age straight away, especially, yeah, especially asking about this for ladies,
Mm.
right? Because someone can feel a bit
Hmm.
not very comfortable answering this question. So there are funny ways how they ask about it. They can ask, for example, they can, when did you graduate from university? So they can, like, roughly
Okay.
know, or they can ask for gentlemen. They ask, have you been to army? Because usually there is a certain
Mm.
age when you go to army, so they can guess. Another funny way of asking is like, what is your Chinese zodiac? Um, um,
Oh, I love that. It's like, what's your horoscope?
I mean, of course, they're not going to do it straight away, but it can happen from time to time. And don't treat these questions very personally. It's just a normal thing in Korean
Okay.
culture. So you just say like I'm like around each age, and that will be enough. When you watch Korean TV, it's such an obvious thing that when they, for example, ask people in the street about something, and there is a title below, like Mrs. Kim, and that's her age in the brackets, for example, 49 or 52.
Okay.
It's something important about her. It's like basic information that viewers could need to understand why she's saying this or that.
Oh, all right. Well, I love how they slip it in. I love the way
You
they
might,
slip it in. They figured it out. Just like a culturally subtle way of asking, so you can then establish the rules for the rest of your conversation, which you would need for
yeah.
business meetings to write up to more informal kind of catch ups, I suppose. Maybe more like business meetings.
So many of the students who come to International House London to learn Korean, they do it because they plan a visit to Korea, a journey or trip. And of course, they should know that it's very difficult, if not almost impossible, to learn conversational language in few months. But still, even if you learn to read Hangul, the Korean letters, the Korean alphabet, and you can read it, and you know how the sentence is organized and how to make simple requests, greetings, and simple phrases that will change your experience in the country. Of course, if you do not speak the language, you still will have a great journey because Koreans are famous for being very nice with tourists. They are very friendly and very polite. They like when guests are coming, and they try to treat them with the best they have. They're not trying to show them the dark sides of the country or the culture, because the guests are the guests and they want to show them the best they have in terms of food, the tourist attractions, people emotions. But the moment you show that you learn Korean, that you have an interest in their language, that you respect it and think it's important, because not many people in the world speak Korean in comparison to other languages, right? So there is, of course, if you have a chance to learn a foreign language, still Korean is not your first priority. So if you choose Korean to learn, they are so grateful and so happy, and you will feel how they treat you in a different way when you speak, even a little broken Korean, but still Korean. So if you go to Korea and speak Korean there even a little bit, it will change your mm, travel experience in a good sense and turn it to the next level. Yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you again so much, Maria, for kind of obviously leaving us with the with this quite a few recommendations. Actually, I've written quite a lot down. I'm going to be honest.
Thank you. Thank you.